oh my goodness, it worked. I'm doing the Instagram and Facebooky thing, and Facebook's just changed its new way of doing lives, which isn't quite as easy. Ultimately, it's probably better, but it is melting my brain. I wanted to just do a quick explanation of a term that I use all the time, and the term is, unsurprisingly, triggers. Because triggers is really what I do. It's what I talk about everywhere. And recently I have been putting out a lot of posts that say, such and such, and then the triggers do this, and triggers has been a part of it, but I haven't taken the time recently to explain fully what triggers are. So I'm just going to drink a bit of my tea whilst people hop on. If when you hop on, can you just give me a wave and just say hello and where you are and when you are, because I love the different time zone business. And also do the same for a replay. Do me a hashtag replay and tell me where you are. So the best way that I have to explain triggers is by borrowing this amazing analogy that a friend of mine, who sadly had cause to experience grief, she sent to me an article about it, and the analogy is called the ball in the box analogy of grief. So if you imagine the box is life. It starts off big, and inside the box there's a ball. Ping 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 ping. Balls do what they do, off they go. And as is life, it's just haphazard, isn't it? Things just happen, which is why it's a ball that's just bouncing off the wall. And in the original analogy, we have grief, and grief is like a big red button inside the box, and the ball's pinging around, and eventually it's going to go boing, and you will feel swamped by grief. The grief will overtake you, and it's normal. To illustrate the story, it's really interesting because my friend sent me this analogy years after my own dad had passed away. I talk about this a lot because I talk about men's mental health a lot, that my dad took his own life in 2011. And obviously there's grief at the time. The grief is raw. The grief is, it's awful. It's awful at the time, and then you kind of think, well, I don't really know what I thought. I don't know what other people thought. But as time goes on, you expect it to be dulled a bit. You expect, the rawness of the grief to go away as time, or to soften as time goes on. Hello, person online, just give me a hello, tell me where you are and all that. And actually, it doesn't it's not like grief is really raw at the time, and then time goes on and it gets less and less and less bad, and then it's fine. That's not how it works, because we have the ball in the box analogy. And mine is that my dad, whom I didn't know very well, and it was a complicated relationship, and yeah, there were good times, because there's always good times, isn't there? And one of the things that I really remember is Christmas and licorice all sorts. And licorice all sorts were absolutely his thing. Like any presents, anything, like birthdays, we would always go and buy him licorice all sorts. And I was in Sainsbury's like 3 years after he passed away at Christmas, and I was down the sweets aisle over there for the celebrations and the quality streets and all that, and there was a big tin of these licorice all sorts. And it was all, it was decorated, and it was embossed, it had up and down, but it was really beautiful. And I'd been absolutely fine all day. There was no reason for me to be upset, and I wasn't upset. But I just, I was trundling along with my trolley, and then I saw this licorice all sorts thing, and I just burst into tears in Sainsbury's over my trolley. It was really embarrassing. It was really embarrassing, and it took me a while even though immediately I knew why, because I knew who it had made me think of. But the visceral shock of the wave of grief really punched me in the face. And then it was after that, as I said, my poor friend had a similar experience as she was going through grief and she was processing it, and that she had sent me this analogy, this article that had the analogy of the ball in the box and the trigger. And then, a couple of years later, I started doing this work and I realised this is what it is. We have, as parents, as humans, but of course my realm is the parenting area, we have these triggers. These triggers are inside us, and our kids, it's like this is the box is us, and the ball is our children, and more specifically, our children's behaviour. And every now and then, our children's behaviour is going to land on one of our triggers, and we are going to react. And I'm using the word react instead of respond, because I mean it. We are going to react because when you are triggered, when something presses your buttons, it is pressing a button from your subconscious. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm mentioning, triggers, blah, blah, blah. So your triggers are parts of you. They are memories and feelings and associations and stories that we have come up with in our youth, and really early in our youth, in our childhood, really from age 0 to 7. Please excuse the symphony of children outside with spoons and pots. Of course they're choosing now. Here's real life. And so we come up with our views from age 0 to 7, and these are big world views. This is our blueprint for the way that we see the world. So if you grew up with a scary man between the ages of 0 and 7, you are learning at that tender age, man, scary, man, scary. So later on, when you're in a position where you are, maybe alone with a man, or a man is being intimidating, your brain is going to go, like those 1980s Rolodexes. This is what I always think of, is go, and then it pulls out the memory, and you're not aware of it. It is subconscious. It is below conscious thought. And this is why when we set ourselves these targets of, like a conscious target of, okay, I'm not yelling at my kids. I don't want to yell at my kids. I don't want to shout at my kids. I don't want to be that person. I absolutely am not going to do that this week. And if I get to the end of the week, I'm going to get takeaway. If I got to the end of the week without yelling at my kids, that's what I'm going to do. Or I will treat myself to a glass of wine. I will do something special. I'll reward myself for doing this behaviour, or in this case, not doing it. It doesn't work. Because this is your conscious brain thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to show up like this. This is the end of this. And it's your subconscious triggers that are being pressed by your children. And this is why we react. It is not your fault. It's so important to know. It's not your fault. It's a trigger. It's a button that was put there many, many years ago. A really great example from a good friend of mine and amazing coach, Steph Heald, that I went to a workshop of hers last week. And she was saying it's like having a bang, a loud bang. Imagine you were scared by a big loud bang. Many of us were when you were a child. And then in adulthood, you say, do you know what? It's ridiculous that I jump at loud bangs. I am not going to jump at loud bangs anymore. This is it. No more. Every time I hear a loud bang, I'm going to stay still. I'm going to be zen. I'm going to be calm. And then off you go. You're going about your business, and you're in a great state of mind. You're feeling good. You've done some calming, and then off you go about your own business. And a car backfires. Boom. You're going to jump. You're going to jump. And yeah, you'll probably jump because that is a human physiological response. But if you have an underlying reason for jumping, like something that scared you as a kid, and you have not gone in and dealt with it, this is your trigger. You will always jump because the subconscious keeps you safe. This is its job. It uses all of your information from when you were younger, from that key period of 0 to 7. It keeps all of that information. It refers to it constantly without you being ever aware of it. And it keeps you safe by making you respond in certain ways. If you were yelled at when you were young, and your kid yells at you now, you will behave in the same way. You will yell back. You will scream. You will throw stuff. Or you maybe will shut down and want to run away. because that is what you learned was safe when you were that age. This is what I mean when I say triggers. And here is the whole point of what I do. Hello. Here is the whole, I'm afraid it's right near the end now. You can always go back and watch the replay. Here is the whole point of what I do and why I bang on about it so much. Because yes, these are triggers. Yes, they aren't there. Yes, they're a pain in the ass when they stop us from behaving in the way that we want to be. And yes, sometimes we want to make changes and we get frustrated because we are not able with our conscious brain to say, okay, stop doing that, or okay, yes, I'm choosing this. We are held back by our subconscious memories, understandings, this blueprint. And the ball, which is your child's behavior, and if you have 2 children, you have 2 of them. If you have 3 children, you have 3 balls ping-ponging around all these triggers. So it's not surprising. It's not surprising that these buttons are going to get pressed. And there are ways of going in and deactivating them. That's why my 6-week program is called Deactivate Triggers. It's called Deactivate Triggers, Activate Love. Because we love our kids. And our triggers get in the way sometimes. And the triggers aren't your fault, because they are there from when you were very young. And it is what it is. And you don't have to live with them. This is my message. So I just wanted to make it really, really clear, because for me, triggers is my bread and butter. It's what I talk about all the time. It's what I think about all the time. It's what I learn about all the time. And it's what I help other people to work through all the time. But I appreciate, and I have to be aware of this, that this isn't how other people talk. And it is different. It is, well, in some ways it's new, and in some ways it's very, very old. It goes all the way back to like Carl Jung and even earlier. It's a thing, and it's not your fault. And conscious mind and reward charts and pep talks and giving yourself regular bollockings for failing. It's not failing because it's not your fault. It's really important that I get that message out. It's not your fault. And you can do something about them. So that's what I wanted to talk about, just to make it really, really clear what triggers means. I'm going to go and help out my kids at dinner time. Speak to you soon. Please do share if you've ever had that experience, either with grief or with triggers, and it has felt like a ball has landed on a trigger and... Okay, thank you very much for your time. Speak to you soon. Bye.